Hi, this is John Farrow of Gamingtrend here with Randy Gregory and Luke Stratton, aka Limithron, creator of Pirate Borg. We are talking today about the imminent Kickstarter for a major expansion. This is both a supplement book, which has its own extra setting in it, or supplement to the setting, and a starter set with a I'm going to cut this together a little bit better. Starter set with a player's guide, as well as a lot of physical tokens and add-ons for your DM. Tons of supplements to the game. It's a pretty massive increase in terms of the options and the elements that you can add. And I want to start by talking about that. Given how concise the original Pirate Borg is as a game, you're now really expanding the options, but I'm sure it's kind of difficult to decide what to cut and what to bring in as you're adding things to your product.
Well, I haven't learned how to cut anything yet, so it's not that difficult. It's basically me just being like, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, and I work pretty quickly, so that helps. But yeah, it's exciting because this is our first Kickstarter since Pirate Borg. So all the stuff that we released between then and now, which is 3 adventures, those will also be available to pick up if you don't have them already. This is our first. Down Among the Dead is the name of the book. It's the first official new player options. But also included in the Kickstarter is Cabin Fever, which is our itch.io jam from earlier in the year that went so well. We canceled doing a print on demand book and are doing a full offset print run. But we are honoring the same price that the print on demand book was going to cost people who bought it. So instead, I think everybody wins. Better book, better representation for the people who contributed. Still a good price point. So in that, there's a bunch. I bring it up because there's a bunch of player options in that as well. So lots of new options, lots of new adventures, lots of add-ons. Maybe too many, but hopefully people can sort their way through the Kickstarter and get the things that they need the most.
It's interesting to hear that because I know one of the most reliable things about Kickstarter is that you think you know how many books you're going to print.
Yeah.
But it's safe to say that Pirate Borg has had a pretty good life after that first run.
Well, we had an interesting run. It was my first book, first game, first Kickstarter, and it did really, really well, like way better than I was planning or expecting, arguably even hoping. But then it got published by Free League, and we've had we've worked really hard to have a strong convention presence. We ran almost 100, I think maybe over 100 events at Gen Con this year. We have a really strong Harbor Master program, which is our rewards program for running public games. In this tier, in this Kickstarter, we have a full retailer tier as well. So yeah, I think, they always say, like, when I talk to people in the industry, they're like, okay, the first book will always do well, and then you get lower after that. But we're optimistic for the opposite here because we added so many things that we didn't have before, like a GM screen and Devil's Luck coins and new adventures. But also, like, people play this game, like it gets played all over the world, which is really wild. I was in vacation with my wife in Germany. We went to a game store in Nuremberg, and they had 3 copies of it on the shelves and says they can hardly keep it in stock. So I was like, this is wild. So
And what is it like as a creator who's making something that's inherently interactive? Because if you create a movie or you write a book, people consume that, but they're not really a part of the experience the way that they would be for an RPG they're running.
yeah, interesting. I never had anybody ask me that. I kind of feel like a conduit, and not in like a artsy way, but like this game, in my opinion, was in the ether. There's not really a lot of actual grimdark pirate stuff, but like there's a lot of grimdark stuff between Dark Souls and Darkest Dungeon, and Elden Ring is really big right now. And then there's Sea of Thieves, which is huge. The Pirates of the Caribbean movies were huge. Like, there's no way in our industry to explore the intersection of those two vibes. And I just made the thing I wanted to exist, So I think a part of the enjoyment that people have in Pirate Borg is that it uses the same skeleton, pun intended, as D&D. You're rolling a D20, you're rolling 3d6 down the line to get your stats. You get a modifier, you're rolling a D20 and adding it. You're usually trying to get a 12. Like, you can teach a D&D group immediately. But more so than that, I think, if you and me and a bunch of people from the office get together to play D&D on a Friday, Joe from accounting might not really have read Lord of the Rings, and he might not like know what a half elf bard should act like. But everybody knows what a pirate does. Like we have pirate birthday parties as kids. Everybody's seen Pirates of the Caribbean. Steal the rum, or steal the treasure, drink the rum, kill the skeletons. I mean, it's just like, I think it's really easy to role play in this setting, and it's a really fun convention game. It's a really fun party game, and like my goal is to make it a really fun campaign game, which I think we're already proving. We've got like, I think it's like a 4-month West Marches campaign running on our Discord server. And my next project, the Dark Caribbean, which is hopefully my magnum opus, is like going to be all about running campaigns in the Dark Caribbean. So,
And one of the things that makes it particularly easy to get into, I don't know how well this would come up, is the fact that the back spread of the book is a character sheet and essentially the character generation rule.
yeah.
So you don't have to, um, I mean, you probably don't want to write in your own book, but you can copy that over, give it to people, and then it'll walk them through what they need to have a functioning character.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Um,
recommend putting it in your book because, as many people know, you can be very squishy, especially at the beginning in Dark Caribbean. It's likely that if you fill out that thing, use pencil for sure. But yeah, we provide that sheet is free on our website. It's also going to be included, laminated with dry erase markers in this starter kit. So I think it comes with 4 or 5 of them, as well as PC sheets. Most starter kits come with pre-gens. Screw that. We're not doing pre-gens. Part of what makes Pirate Borg so fun, and Mark Borg, all these games, is generating a character and finding out, rather than sitting there in silence while everybody picks their, school of wizardry. Instead, they roll for it, and I'm missing an arm, or my favorite roll on the physical ailments table is a natural 20 is so good looking people are jealous. And I have seen that unfold in very hilarious ways at the table. So I don't know. Back to your question earlier about like what's it like to make a game that people interact with. It's just really fun to like watch people get a kick out of. They read those results. Like I've been hearing them for years now, but every time people still get a chuckle of like infested with bugs, or like permanent, like intense scurvy, permanently bleeding gums. People always chuckle, so it's always fun to watch that happen.
and in terms of community involvement, Randy was telling me before we got started that in your Discord, people are actually having some input on how the Kickstarter is going.
Oh yeah, so we did this thing. It's really funny. We did this thing with a company called Launch Boom, which they help set up this like pre-marketing. It's called a funnel if you're going to get into the business nitty gritty. But basically, people pledge $1 prior to the campaign, and in exchange, they get a free Charon's Opal D2, which is like the coin that you put in your mouth as a skeleton, as a person who's dead to get ferried to the land of to the netherworld or whatever. But they also get access to this VIP cabin in our Discord server, and then they get the $1 back on their shipping. So it's like, I don't know. We got like a couple of guys like gave us really negative comments on our Kickstarter. Our last one, they're like, "This is FOMO marketing. This is blah blah blah." I was like, "Dude, we're giving you something free just so we hope that you back early and be involved in the process." So like yesterday, we announced the preview of the Kickstarter, so our VIPs could all go look at what it's going to look like, and like we got like all these comments like these tiers are confusing, I can't buy the thing that I want. So then we ran a Google poll, and we got, I think it was 400 people sent in like what their ideal package would be, and like what tier they want that they can't get, and how they're excited or things. And then literally today, over the past like 24 hours, we've rebuilt all the tiers, redid all the graphics, we're still redoing them to get it as like good as possible, because we want we want people to have the experience that they want. We want them to get what they want. We don't want them to have like I didn't get a discount because I had to do everything one by one. So yes, there's a lot of community involvement, and it's also cool since obviously I'm a business person, but I'm also the artist and writer. So like, yes, there'll be business questions, but also be like, what do you guys think about this piece of art? And people will say things, and then I'll change it like while they're talking to me, and they like can't believe that. Like, no, they don't ever get to get that experience where I'm like, she needs, like, I'm drawing this thing I just showed you guys before the stream, and like I'll probably show this to the people to be like, oh, I can't tell what's going on over here, and I'll fix it. And so it's great for me because it's like live focus testing. Usually you don't find out till after you go to print that something is wrong with your game.
It's pretty rad. Like my day to day, I am a designer and I am in the world of showing stuff to consumers and getting
Yeah,
that immediate feedback. I'm in that Discord. I threw
yeah,
you $1 because that coin, sick.
yeah,
I
yeah,
even threw some comments. I think I suggested, I'm like, oh, what if we did like a crown and other stuff on the back of it? And someone was like, no, it's going on the front. I'm like, cool.
yeah,
I saw it and I was just like, I love this engagement because
yeah,
like
sure.
you talked about the point of like Borg games. There's just so much more involvement, I think, and a lot more creativity just pumped into creating characters, creating storylines, and I love seeing that in this process. And I think
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. I mean, as a creative, I know you're getting just flooded with feedback. And it's
it's a
just
lot.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a lot.
yeah.
And so, I mean, kudos to you for
Thank you.
going down that road because that is a tough road to go
I
down.
mean, I sometimes I struggle. Sometimes you might be able to tell. Sometimes, like I get annoyed when people don't read. Like when
Yeah.
people show up with a really strong opinion and then tell me what to do, and I'll be like, "Did you not read? Like literally the last message I said was about the thing you're like." So I get edgy on those because I am a person. You know, it's like it's tough, and I'm also a stubborn person and a creative person, and I'm an executive on the company level. So it's really hard
Right.
for me to have to like constantly throughout the day be like filtering people's voices into
Hmm.
my head, but at the same time I really want the feedback, and sometimes I get feedback that I wouldn't have thought of, or that with the starter kit for example, we know it's in it, so when we go to make the marketing tools for it, like it's really hard for us to understand what someone who has not seen it before will think it looks like. So it's really helpful to get that feedback. And also, like I designed it, this like her head is this big on my screen if I want it to be. When you see it in the Kickstarter, you can't even see her head, so it's like they can't read the words, they don't, they didn't design the product. So it's very, very helpful. It is a challenge sometimes, but I'm here for it.
I think it's also important for people to have an example of the fact that a creator and consumer relationship doesn't have to be predatory.
Yeah,
You
yes,
can both work
absolutely.
together to make a good product that you
Well,
enjoy and want to buy.
I think we're really transparent about that. I've said this on every interview I've done this week, but we've really just tried to be the gaming company that we always wish we could patronize when we were growing up, and now even. And like those games, like those people are behind walls. This is before the internet. Like now, it's literally like, I mean, like Pirate Borg was. It was the 10th highest selling game in the country last year, and like these people can buy it at their store and then come in and tell me what they think about it. Like that, I've never had that experience. I mean, I've had that with the Morkborg guys a little bit. I mean, I obviously know them now, but like it's still it's definitely a like different way of operating your community. And we have no plans to change that. We're very big on community. We're very big on building a space. I mean, like, what's the point of having a cool game if you can't have a cool like group of people to share it with? So that's kind of where we're at with it.
Something I was thinking about with this is actually going back to Morkborg. Um, what was like the decision to use that system?
I
Like
mean, it was
what drove
totally.
you there?
I think this is probably one of the reasons too that I feel like you can tell obviously that I have a lot of passion for the game and for the setting, but even the rules like that came about totally organically. I was running a 5e uh, pirate campaign after I got into D&D and I had taken a work trip to South America and seen some old like Spanish forts. I was like, man, I could crack out my Pirates of the Spanish main minis and totally run like a sweet D&D game. But like I have to change a bunch of things because like you don't want like level 20 wizards rolling around the Caribbean. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And like a lot of the classes don't make sense. And obviously you're not going to use D&D races. So I was doing all these hacks for my campaign, and I was running my Patreon. This is like over COVID. I was drawing battle maps and releasing them on my Patreon, and I was getting burnt out from the prep and all the maps. And so we took a break, and my friend Kevin ran Morkborg for us. He ran like, I think it was a 3-session short campaign. And it was the most fun I've ever had playing a role-playing game. It was like we were laughing. We weren't looking up rules. He was making things up. We should have died so many times. It ended up killing the boss. And Morkborg, they had at the time had a very active community. Now it's like a whole nother level. but I was like, oh, they have a fully third-party license. Like, I could just hack this for pirates, make a little zine, put it on Kickstarter, get my toes wet before I get my book that I was always working on, The Dark Caribbean, out. And, one thing led to another, and I hacked the zine, and I was like, this is actually like a better way to play in my setting than 5e was, just because, not because of the rules, but just like the Dark Caribbean's more about vibe than it is about mechanics, Like, yeah, there's magic, but there's like if you're not good at magic, there's like a 50% chance you're going to drown when you cast a spell. Like, that's just the kind of vibe I want. I don't want everything to be balanced and everything to have like very specific rules and stop the cinematics to like count squares. So it just really, really worked. And then after hacking it, like, I mean, it was kind of one of those like lightning in a bottle things where you're like, oh my God, like this is the thing, like this is the way to play this game. And I feel like everybody else has had that same experience I have, where you're like, oh, like they're laughing and they're like making saves because they're drinking rum, and because they're not playing an existing rule system. I mean, it's Borg is obviously existing, but because it's hacked from the ground up for Dark Caribbean, like all those things that are built in their years of gamer brain to like say no to things or counteract them, but they don't exist. So all that time you used to think about like, oh, is there a rule for that? Did we learn that? Like, no, dude, there's 2 pages of rules. There's nothing to go look up. Like, there's enough there for the GM to adjudicate. Rulings over rules, as we always say. But then the rest is all about you interacting with your players and having fun. And I think we've had a lot of GMs report back like, hey, man, this is the first time I've had like a lot of fun on the GM side in a while. So yeah. And I think those people would have had the same success if they had found Pirate Borg, or excuse me, Mork Borg or Cyborg, or like Orc Borg first. But it's just like, Pirate Borg is just a good mix. And because of all the digital assets we have, it's like a very rich ecosystem for playing online as well. So I think it caters to a lot of people, Yeah.
How much was that something you considered while making the game? The fact that people would be engaging with it online. There are a lot of virtual tabletops with a lot
I mean, I think
options.
I think online play, VTT play, is like a pillar of our experience, if you will. We're really big on experiences. We're really big on vibe. And VTT has always been a part of my Patreon. All of our battle maps are Foundry ready. We're working on getting them all in the Alchemy store, and they're all already in the Roll20 store. And if you're a patron, you can just upload them to those programs. Yeah. So when I was making Pirate Borg, I mean, this is another thing I think that we did that was very different, that you can tell, like, people in the community can tell that we are people from the community. When you buy Pirate Borg, it comes with the core book PDF in pages, the core book PDF in spreads, so that you can like view it on your computer screen and not have to flip. You see 2 pages at a time. Everything is hyperlinked. Then it also comes with a player PDF that has all the spoilers and tables removed, so that a player can make a character without spoiling the game for themselves. And then it comes with digital assets, like every single monster in the game is configured as a token for Roll20 or whatever your favorite VTT is. That comes with the thing. It's not like an extra. It's like, we want you to play the game. Like, here you go, And it kind of reminds me, I don't know if you guys are in music at all, but like when Pretty Lights first really hit the scene, before he was like this ginormous, kind of pseudo dubstep artist, he still does. I think he releases all of his albums for free, and like, big surprise, he got super famous. Like, so it's kind of one of those, like, in this new, like, I don't know, post-internet era, it's like the way that you market is by being really good and having a good experience, rather than, selling all these little things or having the right ad campaign. I mean, those things are important, but I think we kind of took the right route with the VTT thing, and we continue to do. We have a really good Foundry system. We have a really good Roll20 character sheet that I wrote myself. We have the Alchemy implementation is amazing. They have a premium version of that. So yeah, it's always been a part of our world. And I guess to tie this into the book, Down Among the Dead, the flagship adventure, if you will, is called Lost to the Locker. That adventure I wrote, it has like I think 10 different locations major locations that you can visit. They're all illustrated in kind of like Darkest Dungeon scene style. And I did that because I was like, this will look great as a spread. I'll put at the top, I'll put the image, and in the bottom, I'll put the text. But really, each one of these will be great as a scene that you can load up in your VTT. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't know other designers that are designing with the VTT as the first thing in their mind, So I think that's kind of a cool approach.
And as far as that's concerned, you're now somebody who's involved in writing the game, creating the art and cover for the game, working on the mechanics, the VTT, the marketing, the Kickstarter. What were you doing before creating RPGs, or did you just learn this on the way that allowed you to maintain all these functions?
I mean, I've done a lot of things. I mean, I am still a concert lighting designer. That is my other trade. This year, I have resigned from touring, which is a huge. I mean, I've been on tour for 10 years. I was in Europe for 3 months this year, so I have
That
stepped
must
away
be
from.
exhausting.
Yeah, I mean, and I work the full. Like, I basically have my iPad and my tablet with my Wacom tablet. This guy right here, I bring that with me everywhere. And every day after we're done with the focus in the morning, I find a table somewhere, and I'm totally the vibe guy because I have like a bag of candles and like lamps and a tablecloth, and I just sit up and draw all day. And it's funny because people on tour, I mean, like we're touring at like pretty like arenas and stuff. People on the crew will be like, "Why is that dude always drawing?" Like one guy would call me like drawing dude, and the other people are like, "Yo, bro, he's running his other company right now." Like they have no idea that it's like the concert lighting thing is my backup job, which is pretty cool. But
Is
yeah,
there much intersection?
Yeah, I mean, lighting has really taught me how to like draw because I know how to. Like, really, the difference between like an okay drawing and a great one is knowing how light works. Like if you can do the shading and do all the dark blacks. Well, like I've been looking at musicians on stage for over a decade, so that kind of comes naturally to me. But on top of that, I mean, I guess to your question, like I was in a band before that, and I had to do my own websites, and before that I ran a little software company. Like I've just always been into like running little businesses and using Photoshop for stuff. I feel like now I'm at the part where they like all have culminated into this thing that is like I didn't even think could be a job. So
Love it. Love it. I mean, I'm looking at the spreads right now for the locker, and I was telling John before we got on, I felt like this is leaning so hard into the supernatural aspect of pirate stuff, which, going back to a point you made earlier, there are other pirate role-playing games, but at some point they just feel like I'm playing 5e with some piratey stuff in it. This feels like swashbuckling, going after skeletons, going down the Davy Jones locker. I love that you're folding in things like Charon and like Lost Souls and being like, oh yeah, no, they're from different eras of time. And it just builds upon the world. And I guess I'm just like, where did all that come from?
Well, I mean, like I'm definitely a history buff. I feel like, especially Caribbean history, it's like so rich. Like we don't have the time for it, but like the stories of Captain Morgan himself, they're literally a movie. There's such good movie material that by the time we all were born, they had already made so many movies inspired by his life and books like Captain Blood. Captain Blood is literally just Henry Morgan's life. Like that it's already dried up. That's how they were like, yeah, making a movie of this guy for sure. So there's that. And then I just like the fact, I mean, I like bringing in things from history because people like, they can get them, like there's a location, I'll try not to be too spoilery, but there's a location in the locker where, you can you basically attend a ball and like the NPCs at the ball are like 2 Egyptian rulers and Shakespeare and Socrates. I mean, like I'm a huge Bill and Ted's fans. Yeah. I mean, like you're dead or you're in. We haven't fully talked about this, but basically you're in purgatory. You're not in heaven or hell or the afterlife. You're in purgatory, and there's a chance for you to escape. But in the meantime, you have to interact with you have to go listen to Socrates give a soliloquy or whatever, man, I don't know. I just think that sounds like. That's what I want in a role-playing game, right? Isn't that what, like, I don't know. Why not,
And brief aside, Captain Blood totally holds up. Old classic Arrow
Oh
Flynn
yeah.
pirate.
I mean, I love Captain Blood. I've actually never seen the any of the movie adaptions, which I can't believe actually now that I say that. But I really enjoyed reading the book. But reading it, I was like, wait a second. Everything cool in this book is literally straight out of Henry Morgan's life. Like he does this. There's this one scene in particular where they're down in Maracaibo and they have to like escape and they send pirates ashore, but then they sneak them back lying down in the boat, and then they like sneak out the harbor with a fire ship, and the fire ship blows up the Spanish ships and they sail off to safety. He's like, dude, that's like literally like something out of Pirates of the Caribbean. So, you know, I get a lot of inspiration from that kind of stuff.
Well, good. I'm going to check out the book. I didn't know that it was adapted. Shame on me.
Well, it's not. I
We've
would.
got
It's inspired by. It's definitely inspired by. If you know Morgan's life, you'll be like, you can see the things that are, you know, yeah.
we've got a few minutes left. Do you have any other pirate media recommendations?
Oh man, dude. I mean, you want to just do another episode right now? Because geez, I mean, okay.
Yes.
So my biggest influences, without a doubt, I mean this game that WizKids used to make in the 2000s, Pirates of the Spanish Main, is one of my biggest influences. It's just a pocket model game, but the lore and the way they did the ships, I really love that game. As far as media is concerned, Secret of Monkey Island and Secret of Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge, way up there. Sid Meier's Pirates. Both I've played all the versions. I played the black and white one on the Mac back in the day, and I played the 2004 Xbox version. That's a great game. Black Sails is a great show on Netflix. It starts a little softcore, but if you can get past that or you're into that, great. It turns like Game of Thrones meets Pirate Treasure Island. Obviously, Pirates of the Caribbean. My favorite book of all time is, without a doubt, On Stranger Tides by Tim Powers. If you read it, you will be like, this is the beginning of the Dark Caribbean. It did get optioned for the fourth Pirates of the Caribbean movie, but they basically just stole the words Blackbeard and Fountain of Youth. Everything else is, unfortunately, you know, not the same. So definitely check that out. I think my final one would be, of course, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, because that game is incredible. And it's basically Sid Meier's Pirates, but first person. So,
Yeah.
was that enough?
Definitely
cool.
going to pick it. Yeah, I'm going to pick up on Stranger Tides because I remember thinking when I saw that movie, the most vague elements of this sound interesting. They just don't do it well.
I mean, literally, I just told you the only things they took. It's like they took no plot elements. So they're like, that's a good title, and we want to use Blackbeard, and we want to use the Fountain of Youth. Nothing else is the same, you know? You can tell Tim. I mean, I've read interviews with him. Of course, they're, you know, that book's from the 80s, so they're you know, 40 years old now. But he talked about like when he was writing that book, he thought that he was probably the person on the planet who knew the most about sailing who had never been sailing, because he did all the research, you know. And I don't know if you know Tim's work, but his approach is like, he calls it secret history. So he takes the history that we know and goes in and finds like a fantasy way to make that work. You know, like Blackbeard was a very, very famous pirate and ended up like holding this town captive for medicine and then dying on a sloop, not the Queen Anne's Revenge, like getting his head cut off. And it was like, that doesn't make sense. This book explains everything about that. It's amazing. Like, I definitely check out. If you're into that intersection of fantasy and history, that book is A+.
I actually spent a little while when I was in high school doing archaeology at a house where Blackbeard would park his ship. The town still had holes in it from when the British shelled the town to get the pirates out of it. It's Marcus Hook, Pennsylvania.
Wow,
And
amazing.
it was a fun time because, you know, it was just this like working class town digging up pirate artifacts, and they're learning hard science from professors who are like, so this is how you do a level properly, and this is, this is what a flint is for.
We're actually we've been talking a lot about doing an event. I really wanted to do like a cruise. We actually finished writing and playtesting Buried in the Bahamas, and then we finished our campaign and cast a copy of Pirate Borg into the sea in Nassau Harbor, which was the most cathartic thing I've ever done. I felt a little guilty about the littering, but I was like, this is not littering. This is like a religious practice of placing this book into the place that, or, you know, spawned it. But we kind of nixed the idea of doing a cruise. We want it to be affordable, you know, like a mini con. And I think we're talking about doing something like in North Carolina, maybe Ocracoke Island, because that's where Blackbeard like had his like vinyl bass and stuff. And I feel like that's a good place, you know, central enough to get a good crew of pirates to come play Pirate Borg for the weekend. So I guess stay tuned for if we ever actually announce that.
Well, and I'll tell you this, if you wanted to use that weekend as a cheap way to make a short film, you've got a lighting guy on staff already.
I actually don't know anything about movie lighting. I'm all about concert lighting, man. I'm all about like lots of beams in the air in your face doing cool color things. I know about color temperature and stuff, but I mean, I wouldn't know the first thing. I mean, I would know more than a non-lighting person, but I would have a lot to learn to light a movie, you know. We could now, if we want to do like a pirate rave, boom, I'm your guy. Let's go.
That's Saturday
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, Saturday night after the role playing, you know, we drink all the rum and have a pirate rave. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that moment.
Yeah.
Before we get to the Pirate Rave, you've got a Kickstarter that is launching on September 17th, which is a few days away from when this video is going to go up. Where can people make sure they're tuned into it so they know what's going on?
You can definitely find us just by going to Kickstarter. But if it's before the 17th, you should go to Down Among the Dead. Actually, even during, you can go to downamongthedead.limithron.com. But if you go to that link before the 17th, you can become a VIP and join that channel that we talked earlier and get the Charon's Opal. If you back in the first 48 hours, we do have a embroidered patch of Charon that you can get that says Lost Soul. You can put that on your battle vest, as well as like a PDF of a port generator for my upcoming book, Dark Caribbean. But yeah, Down Among the Dead. Just Google that, downamongthedead.limithron.com. Yeah. 17th, that's going to be the day. It's the beginning of Talk Like a Pirate Week, which is our like big push for people to play Pirate Borg in their friendly local game store. So
I love it.
Well, thanks a lot. It's been great talking to you today. Any last words before we sign off?
Oh, if you can't raise the black, raise the dead.
Yes.
Absolutely.